Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, today we have quite a lot of ground to cover, much of it rather grotesquely entertaining, and some of it just interesting in a Sophoclean sort of way. So without further ado, I am going to plunge right in. Well, our first question is from Ian Josh, which is anxious, broken down. Some of these names. Dear Lady C, 2 questions, please. 1, I've read in today's papers that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have leaked that they'll not be visiting Balmoral when they're in the UK. Have you heard anything that can shed light on this one way or the other? 2, do you agree that Meghan has no one but herself to blame for the catastrophic reception her podcast has received? Well, anxious, or anxious, or shus. If I may take the second one first. Yes, of course Meghan has no one but herself to blame. She took great pains to tell us at the very beginning of the video that you're going to get the real me. You're going to get the authentic me. You're going to get the me that is... I've not been allowed, especially the last few years, for my wonderful, adoring public to see, because I've been prevented, because everything's been done through the lens of the media. Well, I suppose she doesn't regard Oprah as the media. Well, she has no one to blame but herself, because she made it absolutely plain the 200 times that she used the word I and the 74 times that she used the word me, that this was going to be Meghan communicating, the real Meghan, with the public. And oh dear, people have not been quite as adoring or receptive to her munificence. And she has endowed us with her presence and has made presents out of her presence. Presents out of her presence. And people don't appreciate it. Well, and especially the South Africans. I mean, all those black and brown and white South Africans, they're all racist. It's unbelievable. A whole nation of racists. Well, then we get to the Balmoral visit that has been leaked, that they are not going to be going. Well, all I can say is that's going to be a massive relief to everybody. Everybody up at Balmoral if they don't show up. I have no doubt that if they ask to be received, they will be received. But I'm here to tell you, a little birdie has told me, that even if they went, their contact with the Queen would be exceedingly restricted. More than that, I am not prepared to say at this juncture, because I am not going to be the conduit that allows them to receive information that really it is not convenient for others that they become aware of. They have their own reasons for not going to Balmoral. There is the litigation against the Home Office. There is also the fact that they know that no one in the royal family wants to see her, and anybody who wants to see him in a controlled environment for as short a time as possible. There's also the question of time. They only have the Thursday free unless they decide to go at the beginning or the end of the visit. But that's not necessarily convenient because the Prime Minister is most likely going to be kissing hands on the 6th. And the only day that they have is the Thursday. I don't think it's logistically sound, although it certainly would have given the right message to the world if they had wanted to go to see his supposedly beloved and ailing grandmother. J.H. says, can we please have your opinion of the latest puff piece from Sunshine Sachs in an obscure online publication called The Cut? Like everything else they put her name to, it's always going down like a lead balloon. Well, I've actually looked at it. It's embarrassingly saccharine, inaccurate, propagandist, and quite frankly, insulting to the British royal family and the British people and the British press, which welcomed her with open arms, suppressed an awful lot of truths, not Meghan's truth, the truth about her. Well, it's actually, and I'm now speaking as somebody who's been in the public eye for 50 years and know how these things work. Sunshine Sachs is scraping the bottom of the barrel by placing the most important story, publicity-wise, in this obscure journal, because obviously they can't get People or Vanity Fair or any of their go-to places because of the content. First of all, they have to puff her up so much. And secondly, they have to tear down the royal family and the British nation so much that I think all those publications who want cooperation with William and Catherine are shying away. But Sunshine Sachs knows that in this media-driven internet age, no matter how obscure the publication, once it's there, other more noted, respected, reputable, and popular journals, whether they be internet or actual, will pick up the content. So Sunshine Sachs is still doing its job well. The cover photograph shows Meghan at her most unattractive. She has no expression on her face, and you can see how totally hard as nails she is. She's obviously been listening to the criticism about the beatific smile and the beaming and the Charles Manson eyes. She's obviously been listening. She's listened a little bit too hard. Her face is as hard as the listening that she's been doing. There's another picture of her in a ball gown, a black and white ball gown, where she's supposed to be very pared down, very Caroline Bissett Kennedy. It doesn't work. Having said that, all the clothes fit perfectly, because obviously Meg's baby hasn't been the stylist, and she's not been allowed to interfere with the professionals. So it just goes to show people will do their jobs when they're allowed to. So the reason why half the time she looks like something the cat dragged in is because she's interfering with the stylists. It's obvious she loves posing. Obvious. But the content of the article, when it's not laughable, it's sickening. But it shows that Sunshine Sachs are earning their money. Monique Brown says, when Meghan joined the royal family, they gave her the option to continue working as an actress and following her ambition. But no, she said she wanted to take on a role as a royal and do her duty to the Queen and country. That means giving up personal ambitions and doing the duties that are required. It was her choice. She never makes any sense. Well, she doesn't make any sense because her personality type is such that wisdom eludes her. Because even if she has wisdom in terms of moving the chess pieces, the chessboard, and these chess pieces incidentally are human beings, when it comes to herself, she has no insight. It is a feature of her personality type. She has made, in my opinion, the hugest mistake financially and reputationally that she could have made. Because when she was offered to keep her career, she could have kept the money that she earned from the career. I have checked this out. She was not going to be expected to give up the money she earned. It would appear that Harry told her to the contrary. Then she married him, made the big pretense of going to be a working royal, did a full 72 days, not full 72 days of work, 72 days only of work for all the time she was royal. In that time, she was also maneuvering and cutting financial deals and setting up commercial enterprises and deals that were strictly forbidden. That's how I came to write Meghan and Harry, the real story. I was tipped the wink. People hoped they would be able to rein her in. They didn't realize that it was all about money. And she has miscalculated severely, because she then thought she'd be able to be half in, half out, benefit from doing minimal royal duties and enjoying the prestige of being royal while marching across the Atlantic. That was her objective. And the Queen said, no, you can't be half in, half out, which of course evidently infuriated her. Who does this woman think she is? Does she think she owns the word royal? I mean, who is this broken down old woman? She's just the Queen of England. I'm a star. Well, it's not worked out like that, has it? And had she stayed, she would have been able to make a lot of money, and all the offers that she has chased after would actually have come to her. Remember how easy it was to get at the Lion King premiere that commission from Disney? Just imagine what other commissions she'd have been able to get had she remained in. But you know, greed is a terrible thing. And so is ignorance. And you combine the two, gewalt geschrigen. Pamela Morby says, the Queen gave her a dirty look at the wedding as if she was the bad smell she thought needed an air freshener. Sorry. So she blackmailed them with a race card. Well, Pamela Morby, you are entitled to your opinion. I have seen the clip. I would not try to dissuade you from your opinion. You know, they say a picture says 1,000 words. Well, photographic evidence says 1,000,000 words. All of them accurate to a painful point. But the race card had been played before the marriage. That's how the marriage came about. It's all there in my book, Meghan and Harry, the real story. I'm not trying to push the book. I'm just making the point that what happened then isn't being invented now. Janelle says, Serena after a trauma. Chin up, I'm going to play the tournament. Meghan after nothing happened. Boo-hoo! I have to fulfill my obligations. Boo-hoo! Janelle. Serena showed her what a woman of character and what a woman who is a professional does. She spent the whole night in the hospital with her daughter. But she then left her daughter to fulfill her obligations. Meghan is now trying to get our sympathy, and of course it needed to top Serena's story because Olympia only broke her hand while Archie nearly died in a fire that never happened. Oh, can you imagine what would have happened if. Talk about a drama queen. And she shows herself to her worst advantage when she does things like that. But you know, Meghan's personality type hungers for attention and sympathy. I saw it with my mother. It is a very distasteful combination. And the more they seek the two opposing features of their personality, because they are contraindicators of desirability, and they are a deadly combination, and they turn people off. Dr. Debo Cherry says, you are such a hoot. You make my day. Thank you very much. You did a perfect rendition of psychotic thought. Thoughts that violate reality testing standards are psychotic, which is not a personality disorder, except bipolar, which has depressive and psychotic episodes. She is not being monitored closely enough, and the secret is out. Secret is in inverted commas. TBLG, I don't know what that is, sorry. And you have done an excellent job of getting the word out. Thank you very much. I only seek to be fair and truthful. I sent my diagnostic report to the royal family and parliament. When word gets out, others I fear are going to feel silly for having taken anything she ever thought, felt, or acted out seriously. The royal families have had experience before as well, with Anna Anderson, who impersonated Anastasia Romanoff in the early 1900s. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, Gebo Cherry, Dr. Cherry, I should say, I have experience of psychotics and psychotic thinking processes. I was brought up by one. The truth to those people, my dear, is like clay in the hands of a sculptor or sculptress. Let's create a new form. They are not contained by fact, and they are producers of fiction, which they then proceed to present as fact, because that is what they want. What matters isn't the fact, but their desire for the fact to be what they want it to be. And yes, the royal family does have experience of people who are devious, manipulative, and psychotic. Prince Philip's mother, she wasn't devious or manipulative, but she was psychotic at one stage of her life. And she ended up in the loony bin, as the vernacular used to call it. She was institutionalized. And the only thing that dragged her back to sanity was the death of her daughter. Until then, she was definitely not fully functional, let's put it that way. Anna Anderson happened to be the impersonator of Grand Duchess Anastasia of Russia, who was the first cousin of my good friend, first cousin once removed, actually, of my good friend, Princess Olga of Russia. And Olga's grandmother, Grand Duchess Ksenia, who was the Tsar's sister, saw through Anna Anderson from the word go. She actually never even went to see her, but her sister, Grand Duchess Olga, did. And, you know, it was obvious that the woman was a fraud. She looked a lot like Anastasia. She had some, funnily enough, some peculiarities physically that Anastasia had, which made her convincing to some people. But those who knew Anastasia well know, because in fact, Grand Duchess Olga and Grand Duchess Ksenia both made the observation that she was too crass, she was too unrefined, she was too rough and raw, She didn't speak Russian. She spoke with a Polish accent. I mean, there were all sorts of dead giver's ways that she was not Grand Duchess Anastasia. But she decided she was, and till she died for the next, I suppose, 50 years, she clung to the fiction that she was Grand Duchess Anastasia. And she was very convincing to the ignorant and to the uninformed and the uneducated in this subject. Somebody even married her believing that she was Grand Duchess Anastasia, if I recall correctly. Her tombstone says that she was Grand Duchess Anastasia. Then, after she's dead, and they do a DNA test, turns out she was a Polish peasant who was mad. Just goes to show everybody will have a follower, no matter how deluded they are. Madeline Evans says, "Hi, Lady C. I'm hoping Meghan's podcasts are the nails in her coffin. The first one was so boring that I can't imagine too many people will listen to the next 11. If the ratings tank and interest in her disappears, hopefully she will never be given the opportunity to speak publicly again. Networks and other platforms will see she is a boat anchor." In my opinion, she says. Oh dear. Madeline Evans, you are a hoot. May I observe, if the other podcasts turn out to be as systematically dreadful as the first one, she might turn out to be the podcast edition, version would be a better word, of Florence Foster Jenkins, who was notorious in the early to mid part of the 20th century because she couldn't sing to save her life, but she thought she had a good voice and used to have recitals, and she was a huge joke figure in the opera world. There was a movie made about her with Meryl Streep and Hugh Grant. If you're bizarre enough, you can develop a following. It's not going to be as big a following as if you were just positively good. But you will still develop a following. So let us see what happens, because if Meghan is the Florence Foster Jenkins of podcasts, she might turn out to be more successful than you think. Of course, it's arguable that Spotify would wish to renew a contract under those circumstances. And maybe this will be a nail in her coffin. But maybe not, because Spotify doesn't really care if Meghan is a success or failure, I have been told. They would have preferred that she was a success. But as long as they get or can present her as getting a certain number of listenings, because it's listeners, as you can tell, I'm not very au fait with podcasts. But because they can get, if they can get the numbers, people will surf their platform. And that's what they are counting on, evidently, now that they have realized she's not going to be a success. Well, not the success they hoped she would be. But as long as she gets the listeners in, they will have made the correct commercial, well, not decision, they will have enjoyed the correct commercial outcome. A lesser outcome than they would have hoped for, because they hoped for a far greater outcome. They hoped for an unrivaled and unexpurgated success, and they're not getting that. But it might not, by the very business of being awful, it might turn out to be a success. Nick S. says, I wonder if Meghan ever heard of Queen Elizabeth II. She's an absolutely incredibly successful woman. Queen Elizabeth II? You're not talking about H's grandmother, are you? I mean, don't you notice I never call her Queen Elizabeth II or the Queen, nor do I ever waste my breath saying Her Majesty, because I'm not going to say Her Majesty. Because if I say Her Majesty or the Queen or Queen Elizabeth II, I've not reduced her stature sufficiently. On the other hand, if she's just H's granny, she's H's grandmother, she is shorn of all stature. It's quite clever, actually. It's also supremely disrespectful, because I'm here to tell you, the Queen's children refer to her as the Queen, and as Her Majesty intermittently. They do not systematically refer to her as my mother. Princess Margaret, if you ever said to her your sister, she'd eat your head off. You had to say the Queen or Her Majesty. But Meghan's found a way to share every bit of stature off the Queen and reduce her to the level of just being an extension of herself. And since she knows that she would look totally ridiculous saying my grandmother-in-law, she says Harry's grandmother instead. Quite a piece of work, no? Shauna says, the Queen didn't choose her position in life, yet she has taken it on with strength, dignity and grace. Meghan chose the life and was whining before the wedding ring even reached the base of her greedy finger. Well, that's absolutely true. The Queen has never complained. The Queen does her duty, rain or shine, whether she's well or ill, unless she is so ill she can't do it. Otherwise, she does it. And when she can't do it publicly, even when she's ill, and can do it privately, she still does it. And Meghan, whining and complaining about everything. You're right. Including the fact that she had to go and fulfill an engagement in South Africa after Archie nearly died in that fire. that nearly burned down the housing unit. Oh, sorry. The British High Commissioner's residence. Sorry. It's not the housing unit, is it, Megsy baby? It's the British High Commissioner's residence. Well, you know, there is a reason why character is destiny. Character is destiny because if you don't have a good character, you do not fulfill your positive destiny. You fulfill a negative destiny. But if you have a character like the Queen's, you turn out to lead an exemplary life of grave difficulty at times, and with much to complain about. You never complain. When, of course, if you are a spoiled brat with the emotional intelligence of a 2-month-old and the emotional maturity of a 2-year-old, terrible twos, remember? The foot stamping, the shrieking, I don't want to do it, that everybody lives through with 2-year-olds. Well, that's what you get. Philsden says, if she didn't think she was suited to a life of royal engagements, what did she plan to do with her days? Shop, meet friends for tea, watch TV with Harry? For that matter, what does she do with her time in Montecito? And Harry, get up, have breakfast, think about lunch, play with the children, ponder something to wear for dinner, talk to Harry for no more than 15 minutes? Aye. Philsden, I think she's accurate in one thing that she says. She's not a lady who lunches. Oh, she'll slap on the charm as and when it suits her, and she'll play Hail Fellow Well Met and laugh at all the right places and do a convincing and enthusiastic version of having a good time and being socially skilled and appreciative of the efforts of others when it suits her. By and large, though, all her time is and has always been spent in either plotting and scheming to advance herself and fulfill her ambitions, or then playing at being grander than she is, no matter what the role is that she has been enacting. But she's very busy strategizing, planning, fulfilling her desire to be the most famous woman on earth and a figure of tremendous influence and hopefully power. If you think Lady Macbeth was ambitious, William Shakespeare didn't know what ambition was because he lived before Meghan was born. Susan Marie says, imagine telling the Queen, the ultimate ambitious woman, that you're having trauma from a minor incident and she lived through a war and the bombing of her country. Well, of course, she didn't tell the Queen, and the Queen is ultimately an extremely ambitious woman. her ambitions are the correct ambitions, to do her job and fulfill her role in life to the best of her ability. I remember Princess Grace saying once when she was asked, "How would you like to be remembered?" And she said, "As somebody who tried her best." Truly ambitious people want to make the best of the lives they have, to change that which is desirable to change, and to retain that which is desirable to retain. Change for its own sake is destructive. Vaulting ambition is destructive. Somebody who wants to become someone else as opposed to evolve into the best version of himself or herself is somebody who suffers from misguided and destructive ambition. Ambition is basically a neutral thing. You can be productively ambitious, constructively ambitious, or destructively ambitious. More than that, I don't think I need to say. And when people in palace circles speak about somebody being ambitious, they mean somebody who is destructively ambitious. Because everyone in elevated circles, except for a few misfits, is brought up to fulfill ambition in its purest and finest sense to the fullest of their capacity, and to make successes of their lives. Vicky Nay says, "Hello, Lady C. And Mickey and Aurora." Aurora is sleeping over there, and Mickey is under this coffee table sleeping. "What do you think the significance is of Maggie actually naming the nanny involved in the fire incident? She has just put a bullseye on that girl for the press. Do you think she was seeking revenge on the nanny? Or does she want the press to seek out the nanny because the nanny will back up her story that everyone was so upset and then gush compliments about Maggie?" Well, first of all, we have Meghan's word for it that everybody was in tears. Everybody was in tears. I mean, when she arrived back at the High Commissioner's residence, I'm confused, the housing unit. When she arrived back at the housing unit, everybody was in tears. I mean, people were disconsolate. That's her message. They were grief-stricken for her and H, because that baby that she had carried for, was it 15 months or 11 months? I forget how long it was. But she carried that baby for a very long time. As she waddled, we have her word for it. The photographs tell a different story, but we've got to defer to her words, not what the photographs or the video footage that exists. And she was so tired all the time. All the time. Tired. Well, I suppose if I had to clutch a belly for that length of time, I'd be perpetually exhausted as well, but that's something else again. Well, of course, if you carry a baby for that length of time, everybody who has a heart is going to spill out their guts tearfully because there was a terrible fire that nearly killed the baby. And, oh, sorry, there wasn't a fire, was there? The heater didn't even catch on fire. It evidently only smoked. And they turned it off. end of the story, but the beginning of the drama. Because Megsy Baby needed a drama to trump Serena. I mean, Serena's daughter only fell out of her high chair and broke her wrist, and Serena only had to play tennis the following day and only spent the whole night in the hospital with her, and only showed what a professional with character does by leaving the sick baby to fulfill her professional obligations. And she won the match. While Megsy turned a non-event into a total drama. Well, evidently not at the time. And if you see the footage of her and Harry at the event that she would now like you to believe she was forced by these horrid, evil people who didn't have any compassion for her suffering. And let's remember as well that Serena did say to her in the broadcast, well, why didn't you take him with you? Megsy Baby, of course, completely ignored that commonsensical comment. Well, I actually don't think that naming the nanny puts a mark on her, because all royal staff have to sign non-disclosure agreements of one nature or the other. So I think it's a safe bet to say, without gilding the lily, that there's no prospect of the nanny speaking, even if the press should reach her. Would it be vengeance? Well, we know that Megsy Baby has a vindictive streak in her nature, but I don't think she was being vengeful. I think she simply wanted to tell a story well, and she's sufficiently professional and proficient to know that the story is better told if you name the person. And if you put in little details, like Time magazine used to put in, the mud cloth. Of course, that's such a disparaging thing to have said. And the South Africans have rightly, they're up in arms because they have rightly taken strong exception to her description, which they regard as a racist and also condescending and snobbish. But that's something else again. So I don't think it's anything more ominous than she doesn't care about the nanny. She doesn't care about mentioning the nanny. If the nanny is subjected to harassment from the press, why would she care about that? She didn't care about it with her father. She was perfectly happy for the full length of time that she had protection for her mother to have her father exposed to daily harassment by the press. Why would she care about a nanny? I mean, her father, remember, spoiled her rotten. Her father was a loving father. Her father put her through school. Oh, sorry, I forgot. That's her, not, that's his version. And he has the bills to prove it. And he can prove that he paid for all of this. But her version is that she worked throughout to put herself through school and educate herself. Phantasmagoric. But I'm sure if the nanny were found and the nanny knew what was good for her, she would gush endless comments about her wonderful Megsy baby employer. And what a wonderful human being Megsy is. If she was sensible, that's what she'd do. Otherwise, she might get sued. Edith Demeroff says, at the Oprah interview, M&H said a senior royal brought up the subject of the colour of Archie's skin. Could that senior royal be H or M? Edith Demeroff, you're brilliant. Nobody has actually alighted upon that possibility before. I certainly haven't. And of the tens, if not by now hundreds of thousands of comments I've had, nobody else has either. You're absolutely right. I tell you why I know you're absolutely right as a possibility. 9 times out of 10, when these planted stories by Sunshine Sachs or Harry and Meghan are promulgated and they say a royal source, the royal source is usually Meghan, but occasionally Harry. So if they're the source for that type of such, saying that a royal said it, and I mean, it's really very unlikely. In fact, it would be unnatural. In fact, it would be unhealthy if Meghan and Harry had not speculated as to what their babies were going to look like. What colour eyes, what colour hair, what colour skin. That's what everybody does. Is the baby going to be fair like the mother or dark like the father? These are with Caucasians. These are with black people of different hues. Is the baby going to have a nose like the grandfather, like the grandmother? Is it going to have the colouring of the great-grandparents or the grandparents or the parents? They would have speculated, and if they didn't, they are truly unnatural. So they could be absolutely speaking the truth. Somebody in the royal family did bring up the colour of the possibility of Archie's skin. But I know as a fact that no other member of the royal family said anything racist, pejorative, disdainful, or untoward about the colour of Archie's skin. And that is a fact. I know it as a fact, and I'm not going to tell you how I know it as a fact, but I know it as a fact. And I, at this point, would say, between believing my word or theirs, who has the track record of staying with the facts, and who has the track record of ignoring the facts? I have several books to prove that I respect facts. It's all there in black and white. Kathy 001 Hopkins says, and this is the start of the South African aspect, I can't stand people who visit a country for a few days and perceive to know everything about it. The fact that she was put up in a unit? 5 question marks. Where is this woman's head? She is so bloody condescending about everything. She hasn't a clue about Africa or its peoples. We are a proud and robust people. We have been through so much, and contrary to what most people believe, we have a tremendous amount of goodwill towards each other, regardless of race or religion. The Harkles are so patronizing. Please stay in California and leave our beloved South Africa alone. Well, Kathy Hopkins, in fairness to Harry, he should not be a part of this because he didn't make any disparaging comments, and to give him his due, he does not usually come across as condescending. He's coming across increasingly as hectoring and pontificating and posturing, but condescending, no. That's Madame Disdainful. So let's cut him some slack here. She's the one who said it, and she is the one who is the driving engine to a lot of this. So let's give credit where it's due. And since she's earned the credit, we should give it to her. Shamima Patel says, well, only a few minutes into her podcast, she managed to unite a whole country, South Africa, in hating her, ! Couldn't have been said better, Shamina Patel. Annika Rubin says, don't be fooled by South Africa's third world status. Cape Town has some of the greatest hotels in the world, and a fire incident would definitely not have gone unnoticed. The press is also still unbiased compared to US news outlets. Reporters would have been all over this so-called fire incident, fire in quotation marks. Ridiculous claim to have made by Meghan, even laughable, definitely laughable, Annika Rubin, definitely laughable, and bitterly offensive, and hence why the South Africans are up in arms about it. Black, white, brown, yellow, pink, and green. MMH says, and here you have to bear with me. I'm afraid I don't speak Afrikaans. I am definitely a Vertsek Meghan supporter. Meghan should not, big block capitals, set her crooked sorry, her crooked toes on South African soil ever, big block capitals, again. Many exclamation marks. Well, you, my dear, are one of countless people, because this has been trending. I think it's the biggest trending thing in South Africa ever. And it encompasses all races, classes, and religions. So Meghan has managed to put her big foot into it in the most amazing way. But it serves a purpose. And I'm going to tell you what the purpose is. The Meghans and mummies of this world learn at a certain stage that controversy and being provocative and being offensive guarantees them attention. So they learn at some point that it is an attention-seeking device to be employed and or deployed so that they will successfully achieve the notice, the attention that they demand. But for that comment, Meghan's podcast would not have caused the trending that it has caused, and would not have gained the attention that it has gained. So one could actually say that there is a strong indicator that, or a strong indication, depending on which way you look at it, that she was deliberately provoking and is deliberately provocative, knowing that she'll get a rise out of people. And I have to tell you, I've seen it as a technique that my mother used to use. She'd throw in provocative comments, zingers, so that at some point you would be provoked. It's classical behaviour for certain types of personalities. Anne Wilcox says, Lady C, why did Meghan deliberately insult the people of South Africa by using the phrase housing unit? She knew exactly what she was doing, but why would she want to be so cruel to such a poor but proud nation? Well, Anne Wilcox, I've sort of just answered the question, and now I'm going to flip it over and say, because I also saw with Mummy, that sometimes she would cause the greatest offence and be so out of touch with anybody else's feelings but her own, and anybody else's rights, privileges, desires, and sensitivities but her own, that sometimes she would say it not to be provocative, but to give another message. And the message that Meghan was giving, because Meghan is very condescending, and the message she was giving was that she is so great and grand that she doesn't need to appreciate a state wedding or a High Commissioner's grand residence. She can look down on these things. It's just a spectacle. It's just a housing unit. The disdain that this woman shows us that she feels as she snares down at everybody and everything, except when she's currying favour, from the Olympian heights of superiority that she occupies. I mean, it's truly remarkable. So she actually might not have intended to cause offence, so much as give everybody the message that she, the great Meghan, is supremely unimpressed because she's so great and grand that staying in the British High Commissioner's, sorry, I'm saying ambassador, he's a High Commissioner, in the British High Commissioner's residence is nothing to be excited about, in much the same way that having a wedding in St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle, was just a bagatelle, a spectacle that didn't move her and didn't impress her because she's beyond all of that BS. No, she's an authentic. I'm authentic. I'm sincere. I'm authentic. I'm real. I'm a real person. I'm a real person. And that's why I'm not impressed with all of this grandiosity. I'm just a simple, everyday goddess. And I don't need to be impressed with all of this nonsense. That could be the message she was hoping to deliver. She's delivered the wrong message. However, she's also delivered the right message, because irrespective of what her intentions were, the message was so completely distasteful, disrespectful, provocative and rarely just insulting, that whether she intended to insult or not, she succeeded brilliantly. And this is why Meghan needs help. But even if she got help, she would simply convert it into yet another tool with which to play darts with us, the human beings who are the onlookers at the spectacle, being the bullseye. And whether we are onlookers or participants, everybody is a target. Everybody. And the only people who are spared being overt targets are those who she needs and who are of use to her. Everyone else is a target. Who does this old woman think she is? I mean, does she think she owns the word royal? And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and remember, keep the questions and comments coming in. This cannot be done without you. Thank you so much. God bless and goodbye.